Yeah, yeah. Good evening, everyone. Let me introduce myself as Vidyulatha. I'm from the Department of Stress Management in Dr. Mohan's Diabetes Specialty Center. Here we do counseling for people with diabetes who show poor compliance with the regimen or who have problems related to stress or any problem at all by doing cognitive behavior therapy, trying to change people's behavior, modify, behavior which already exists and is harmful for glycemic control. So these are some of the things we do. We show relaxation techniques and any other problem related to poor sugars which can help by modifying people's behavior is what we do in this department. So first of all, I would like to wish you a happy Women's Day. I think it's very important to value ourselves as women. And rather than speak on stress per se, I would like to talk to you about something which is related to stress and which many of you may not have even thought of, but is very related to how we handle situations, our personal life, which is related to our success, our academic achievements, and so many other factors. So I'm talking about self-esteem. Okay, now what is self-esteem? Self-esteem is the a kind of personal worth, the kind of worth we put on ourselves, a sense of personal worth that we have regarding it can be about our appearance, about our emotions, about our behavior, about our mental health, and how much we value others. Okay, because unless we value ourselves, no one else will. So it's very important to have a sound self-esteem. Now, why would I talk about self-esteem and stress, right? So now the self-esteem which is formed right from our childhood has a lot to do with how we handle stress later on in life. Okay, so self-esteem starts building up right from childhood. Okay, as you know, in the family, what happens is sometimes, one is compared with the siblings. One is told that, oh, the our neighbor's son studies so well. Why are you so lazy? And so it starts right from childhood, from the family. When if you're being constantly criticized and being told you're not good enough, slowly that the self-esteem starts going down, not going down, it starts forming right from there. And it continues to be low throughout one's life. Because sometimes what happens when you go to school, sometimes even though we are very brilliant, and even if we score marks, sometimes we feel it's not good enough. Like you get 95, you feel, oh, maybe I should have got 100. So many things like that. And then when we are distracted, sometimes, we are not very focused when we are young. So the teachers start, criticizing us and, complain to the parents. So even after the family, next comes the school life. So the school life also does a lot to shape our personality and our self-esteem. And if one is constantly doing badly in school and getting poor marks, then that's another reason for low self-esteem. Gradually, we grow up, we go to college, then we go to, go for work sometimes. Work also, sometimes what happens is, though we are doing our best, we feel that people are overtaking us, we are not getting due promotions, we feel that so and so is not better than us, but he is moving up the ladder. So there are many factors like that that contribute to low self-esteem. But a sound self-esteem will always help us. It's almost like a tree that you see in the storm. Some trees they just crumble and fall easily, but some trees they tend to, just stay firm. Their roots are firm, even if the leaves and all that fall. The tree stays firm and rooted. So self-esteem later on has a big role to play in our academic, achievements, in our professional life, in our mental health. When the self-esteem is low, what happens is we tend to take things very personally. Okay, so even when things go wrong, we constantly blame ourselves. We tend to be very negative. in what we think and do, and that affects the way we perform also. And so there are many factors like this which prevent us from climbing the ladder and realizing our full potential. Even though one is very capable, what happens is when the self-esteem is low, what happens is that one does not realize one's full potential and one underperforms. Sometimes on the negative side, people get into very toxic relationships or abusive relationships when their self-esteem is very low, because they feel, the point of reference may be your some significant others like your husband, in-laws, or anyone. It can be your own parent, anyone who's significantly related to you, relatives. So sometimes what happens, we get into very abusive relationships because we do not know our own worth, and at some point of time we feel that we deserve it. One sees very highly qualified people. I find that despite being scientists and doctors or engineers, they have a very low self-esteem because of the sometimes toxic relationships they form, or they do not realize their own self-worth. Well, it is okay if the self-esteem, it goes up and down. Sometimes you may be good in something, you may not be good in something. Sometimes there can be a few variations, but when the self-esteem is constantly low, then it can lead to a lot of negativity, and you keep criticizing yourself. And sometimes to overcompensate, what happens is we tend to become perfectionists, okay, because you think you're not good enough, so you push yourself to become very perfect. And sometimes what happens is that nothing happens, and rather you do not fulfill, you do not achieve your goals due to that, and that again leads to a lot of negativity. Then you give up, and then you keep beating yourself. I don't know where I've gone wrong. I studied so hard, I tried so hard, but because of the unrealistic expectations, one does not really achieve what one is capable of. Another thing is, sometimes due to a low self-esteem, people can become very depressed, have very low self-worth, and that can become a clinical problem to the extent that you may require medication. Well, do reach out for personal help then. Some of the symptoms would be that, total disinterest in things, lack of sleep, a lack of appetite. So those are some of the symptoms of depression, which uh, only when it comes to a stage that you cannot handle anything, then do reach out for help. Okay, so there are many tools to boost one's self-esteem. One would be, update your knowledge. Sometimes when we are, in a job, when we feel we are not good enough, there is always a way of compensating. We can update our knowledge because that is a great confidence builder. When we are, lacking in our knowledge, then what happens is definitely our self-confidence will waver. Another thing is to pursue hobbies, and you can also capitalize on your strengths, right? You can find out what your strengths are, then focusing only on your weaknesses. Very often, one finds that people who are good in a lot of things will not focus. There may be women who are good in cooking, they may be good in sewing, managing the house, but they will say, "Oh, I'm terrible, and I'm not working. I should have worked." So many things like that. Or there are women who are very good in their work, and they say, but we do such a bad job of managing our house, we do not give enough quality time to our family, all these things. So either way, we are all trying to be very perfect as women, and sometimes there is no need to be, because you have to be realistic. And sometimes the thing about women is that they are not very assertive. Okay, so they feel that, again, it could be due to a low self-esteem. They do not express what they feel, and they feel that they are not worthy enough. So whatever they are doing is not enough, and they push themselves further and further. So learning to be assertive is very important. So on one side, People are not assertive at all due to low self-esteem. There is another facet also where people tend to be very aggressive when their self-esteem is low, because again here they are trying to compensate for something that they are deficient in, and so they try to become very aggressive and try to put another person down to cover their shortcomings. Okay, so both are bad. And very often, because of a low self-esteem, you will find that children who are in school are constantly bullied, and the parents or the teacher has to take up for them. So this is all, it boils down to low self-esteem. um, I would like to make this into an interactive session where I don't keep talking, so please field any questions that you would like to. Right? Yeah. And actually, yesterday I was just reading some news, and I found that an 18-year-old boy had committed suicide because he was very unhappy with his color. So again, now, does anyone have anything to say about this? Why would he do that? His whole life was, ahead of him. So why would he do something like that? Again, because he thought he had no value. I mean, his color mattered so much to him that he thought that he's not worthy of anything. So sometimes our appearance also plays a large role regarding our self-esteem. We always think we are too fat, too thin, too dark, or ugly, or stupid. So people keep making these statements which do not help at all. So this is what we call negative self-talk. So negative self-talk, as in you keep thinking that you are like that, and you actually express it also. Many people, I find that they are expressing, when we are at a gathering or at a party, or some social gathering, people are actually saying, oh, I'm like this, I'm like that, I'm, so and so is always telling me I'm, bad at directions, or I don't know these roads, or so many things like that. So if you put yourself down, even others will. So please remember that. What is stress? I think many people will, ask this question. How do I know that I'm stressed? Some people actually come and they say, oh, I'm very stressed. This happened, that happened. But there are at times, when people are not very aware of whether they are stressed or not. So I would say, like, this is stress. Can you see this? This is a rubber band. So you are only capable of this much. So if you keep, expanding and expanding, to such an extent that you are not, oh, it's snapped. Okay, so this is stress. When you're not able to cope, and then you become very irritable, you don't know how to manage things. So that is stress. Okay, when you have the resources to cope and you are coping, that means that you're not under stress. At the same time, one would not say that all stress is negative. I hope people realize that all stress is not negative. Okay, there can be a lot of positive stress. For example, getting married is a positive stress. Then finishing a project, finishing a deadline, getting a promotion. All these are positive stress. But sometimes work overload, trying to do too much in a short time, multitasking. Over a certain degree. All this one can see is negative stress where we cannot cope. Okay, so these are some of the things that stress actually may be positive or negative, both. Okay, um, there are many other ways to boost one's self-esteem. Like apart from building, updating one's knowledge. It's important to have positive attitude towards life. It's very easy to say, I know, but then yes, it is very important to have a positive attitude towards life, especially during this pandemic. Everyone has become very stressed. So what is the reason for the so much stress during the pandemic? It is because the duration of the pandemic has extended to a very, very long time, and which no one expected. So people have, there is an interruption in your goals. People wanted to get married, they couldn't. People wanted to get a promotion, they couldn't. So there were many factors which led to a lot of stress during the pandemic. On a lighter note, people thought it was very, their main way of de-stressing was going to the mall or seeing movies, or going for parties and weddings. So suddenly all that came to a standstill. So that caused a lot of stress. So people had to rethink, what their priorities are, and realize that maybe it's not so important to go to the mall. You can do things online, and even if you do not go for movies, there are other ways that you can, keep yourself occupied, and you can find out what your real potential is. There were many a time people said that they started cooking and catering during the pandemic. Housewives became very active, and even those who were not became very active. So there were a lot of things that changed during the pandemic, and one hopes that everyone learned to cope and has learned to cope so far. And maybe you have to rethink goals. If you were expecting a promotion, maybe you might have to postpone it, and things like that. Apart from that, people who are under a lot of stress, who have a low self-esteem, are always critical about themselves, and also about others. So they are very judgmental, and they keep saying they should have done things in a different way. They should have, but then it's important to learn once from one's mistakes and move on. Okay. As for stress, it is merely a perception. You will find that some people are very at ease. When there is a stressful situation, some breakdown, an IT breakdown or anything. Some people are very calm, whereas some people panic. So it is a very an individual thing and depends on one's personality. Again, coming back to self-esteem, those with high self-esteem uh, have that trust in themselves and that confidence that they can always handle stress very well. Okay, whereas those who have a low self-esteem panic and they feel they cannot handle stress, they need help from others. They are not able to manage. Not that there's anything wrong in getting support from others. Please do that if you feel you cannot cope. But the fact remains that people with a very high self-esteem have the trust and the ability to cope in very stressful situations. So that is why I'm connecting stress and self-esteem, right? Um, any other questions? No one seems to be saying anything or asking questions. Okay. So generally, it is very important for women to value themselves and think, you know, and learn to be assertive. So this is one thing which I always say, that women find it very hard to say no. Am I right? So what happens is that people are always, women. I find that they're always trying to, sometimes stretch themselves thin because they are expected to. So they want to run the house, then they, want to help the neighbor, they want to take their mother-in-law to the hospital. So many things. So it is very, very important to learn to say no, or rather be assertive. Being assertive is very important uh, to reduce stress. And a lot of women, what happens is they feel very guilty. I've realized that many people feel guilty. Again, coming back to saying no, they're not very comfortable. They feel that, oh my God, why did I refuse? I should have, you know, uh, uh, you know, I should not have displeased others. So sometimes, again, this comes back to self-esteem, because when your self-esteem is sound, you do not really care what others think about you, and because you do not need others' opinion so much to value yourself, because anyway you value yourself. Okay, so it's not necessary to feel guilty when we cannot cope and when we cannot do something and expressing it. Okay, so can you give some workout exercises to reduce stress? Who's this asking? Okay. Um, Deep breathing is very good. I think Dr. Mohan always recommends it. Deep breathing is very good to reduce stress because when we control our breath, automatically, our stress level goes down. As you know, when we are under stress, our breath becomes very fast. Yeah, our digestive system shuts down, our circulatory system speeds up. So many changes happen in the body. And as you know, only the respiratory system or the breathing is something that we can control. So learning to voluntarily control your breath or pranayama, what we call it, will definitely help to reduce stress. Uh, there are different ways to reduce stress. So when women are always multitasking, as you know, so when women are working or when they are not working, even at home, there are many things to do and very little time to do it in. So it's important to manage your time very well. It's very, very important. Managing time and writing things down is very important, a to-do list. Because very often we forget many things. People often tell me that, I'm having, like some people come and tell me that I'm having memory loss. And when I look at their age, like they're quite young. So it's not that they're having a memory loss, it's just that they are, a little, distracted and they misplace things and they do not write many things down. So they focus on some things and some things they do not focus on. So these are some of the factors which would help you: time management, writing these things down, and it's very important for us to schedule. I know it's a cliche, but me time. Okay, it's very, very important. Keep at least 45 minutes to 1 hour to do what you like. If it's not pursuing a hobby, like do some physical activity, some exercise, yoga, meditation, or some people go to the gym, meet up with friends. So all these are very important to kind of balance one's stress. Anything else that you all would like to know? I don't see any questions coming. Okay. So actually, research has shown that people who are fit handle stress better. So again, a healthy diet, adequate sleep, and a lot of exercise will definitely help you to handle stress better. Coming to diabetes or any chronic illness, what happens is sometimes people again might develop a low self-esteem only because of that, because they feel they are inferior to others, that they are sickly, and often they develop a victim-like attitude, saying that, oh, this person has done very well. He doesn't have diabetes. He doesn't have chronic back pain. He doesn't have so many other illnesses. Whereas I am like that. So it's very easy to fall into that poor me pattern. Uh, Even if there are handicaps or disabilities, do learn to overcome them. Even if there are limitations, one can always cope by managing oneself better and thinking that one can do the best within those limitations. Okay. So anything else? Would anyone like to ask any questions? So these are some of the things I've discussed regarding stress. If you all have any doubts or would you like to ask me something, uh, then please do so. Okay. Okay. So, okay, like again, like I say, women have a lot of stress trying to multitask and handle so many things at the same time. And, whether at work or at home, we are trying to be super women. So please realize that it is not important to be a superwoman and try to cope within the resources that you have, whether it is at work or home, and give yourself a pat on the back that you have done well. Um, do value yourself as a woman and realize that many women, both abroad and in India, have achieved a lot. And now this gender thing of the male and the female has the imbalance of power, what we call, has greatly reduced. So there is no limit to how much a woman can achieve. Okay? So happy Women's Day, everybody. Anything else? Any questions? Do let me know. So do build up your self-esteem. I have told you about high self-esteem and low self-esteem. So we are not telling you to be very aggressive or pushy enough and be overconfident to have a high self-esteem, because it is the very core of your being. And it's important to be assertive and learn to update your skills, develop hobbies, or update your knowledge. So, so that is how we can boost our self-esteem. So, Madam age 31 and diabetes, please suggest me food, diet, and exercise. Okay. So, Mr. Ashok, I think as far as diabetes goes, I think the diet plan is about, though I'm not, a dietitian, it's about counting your calories at every meal, eating frequently and not large portion at a time, and a healthy, balanced diet. Exercise is very important to reduce, stress as well as bring down your sugars. So do keep 45 minutes of your valuable time for exercising. Most people keep saying they do not have time to exercise, but that is the best way to bring down your HbA1c. A healthy diet, a balanced diet by counting your calories and exercising daily will definitely help in reducing your HbA1c and 3 months average. Does that answer your question? Another thing I would like to tell you about stress is that people who are resilient, that is, people, when we talk about resilience, it is about how we adapt to situations. So they always cope with stress better. Whenever there is a stressful situation, then it's important to think of how to adapt to the situation or how to modify it. So this is where we talk about coping, coping with our problems. Because if there is a solution to the problem, then we can definitely use the solution to move on. But sometimes it could be that there is no solution to a problem. In that case, you will have to reframe the situation, look at things in a different way. For example, being diagnosed with a chronic illness, sometimes there may not be a problem to that, because it is a chronic situation. So you cannot just say, okay, now I will, totally get rid of them, because you may not. But at the same time, you may, by taking the medication regularly, uh, following whatever the doctor says, will definitely help in um, is handling the situation, handling the illness. So these are some of the things. Those who are resilient definitely handle stress better. Okay, and there are people vary in the way of how they are resilient in a situation, because some people are very proactive and they keep thinking of what to do next. Okay, plan A falls, let me fall back on plan B. Sometimes what happens is some people think, oh my God, now this has happened. I cannot do anything about it. So what to do next? So they feel very sorry for themselves. They are full of self pity, and then they resort to very unhealthy strategies to reduce stress. So some of them would be like, they start smoking. Some people start drinking, uh, and some of them even indulge in self harm. They have all these unhealthy behavior strategies to reduce stress when there are very healthy strategies. So this is the what we call the poor me syndrome, where we really don't know how to handle a situation, so you try to wallow in self pity and try to get a lot of sympathy from others because we don't know how else to handle it. And we feel that getting attention, even if it is negative, is okay. So this, try to be more proactive, uh, solve problems in a different way, learn to be more resilient. So all these will help in handling your stress better. So any more questions? Mm, So okay, so apart from that, do balance your stress even if you can't reduce it by doing relaxation techniques, yoga, meditation, attend spiritual classes. All these help in balancing stress. Talking to people. So in this pandemic, what happened was it was social interaction became very difficult. So it was very difficult to interact with others and de-stress. But then one can always pick up the phone and call others, talk to your family, and sometimes when it's very difficult and we don't know how to cope with the situation, it always helps when we are when you talk to others, get different perspectives, because that may help you realize that you are probably overreacting to situations. Okay, so any other questions? So I would like to, tell you this story about the little red truck. That might help in, because I've been talking a lot about self-esteem. So if all of you are wondering what it is and how one can overcome it, this story always fascinated me. I hope it will make some sense to you. So it was about this big car yard where there were a lot of old trucks and cars and a lot of very old trucks. There was nothing new in that, and they were all very happy with each other. They had no value at all, but they were very happy with each other. And suddenly, what happened was one new old truck came into the scene. Okay, I hope you know what I mean. It was not a new truck, but an old one, but it was new for them. So suddenly, there was a lot of suspicion, and why has this old truck suddenly, this new old truck suddenly come out to the scene, and it's disrupting our life. And so they tried their best to make its life miserable, and they totally isolated it, and tried to bully it and all that. So this poor old truck was feeling very sorry for himself because he was not being accepted by anybody. So this went on for some time, and after a while, he thought that he must do something to get accepted. So what he did was, he at night when everyone was sleeping, when the trucks and the other old cars were sleeping, he painted himself a bright red. The next day, when everyone got up, the other old cars and trucks got up, they realized that, oh my God, there is this shining new red truck here amidst us. And they were very fascinated. And then, the truck started getting a lot of respect because of its appearance and, it being different from them. So it was the same old truck which they didn't realize. But he managed to transform himself into a new truck just by painting himself and get accepted. And from then onwards, he got a lot of respect After a few days, suddenly it started raining, and then, as was expected, slowly the paint got washed away, and all the others realized that it was the same old truck who they had been very disapproving of earlier, but the truck survived and it never, they continued to respect it. So I hope you all like this, small story about how one can boost one's self-esteem, even if it is low, by doing things like this. Okay. So, any other questions? Anything related to stress or anyway? So happy Women's Day, everybody! And I hope from now on, you know, we learn to value ourselves and give each other respect and realize our worth, because that is very important, as it's very easy to lose your sense of self-worth and esteem, and thereby, you know, the stress also adds up when we do not place any value for ourselves. So any other questions? I thought this would be an interactive session where people ask a lot of questions, and so no other questions. We stop or